Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to be showing the full process that goes into building a small engine for your mini bike or go-kart. I'll be installing all the parts shown here into my Predator 212 non-Hemi. For this build, I've chosen to go with a slipstream billet flywheel, an ARC billet rod with a flat top piston, 26-pound valve springs with aluminum retainers, an upgraded coil, and a Black Mamba Jr. camshaft from Small Engine Cams. I'll also be doing a port and polish on my valves and showing the process that goes into that too. If you want to skip ahead to a certain point, you can click the chapters below or find the timestamps in the description. A build like this takes a lot of time, money, and effort, especially if it's your first time, so it's important to go in prepared. You'll see later what happens when you're not prepared as you watch me struggle through certain parts, and you'll learn from my mistakes. I'll leave a list of the tools I used, along with tools I would now highly recommend, in the description. That's enough talking for now though, let's get right into it. Tear down the motor a little bit. I took off some of the parts that are gonna just get in our way. First things first, just take off the heatsink, and the next step is going to be taking off this box so we can take off the oil sensor inside. We're just going to cut this wire, unplug this one, and then we can use the kill switch still, but not have the oil sensor shut off, since this motor is probably going to be sloshing the oil around quite a bit. Nice. Now that that's taken off, next up we're going to be just taking off this so we can take off the flywheel. And there we go, it's taken off. Now I'm going to remove the coil. Now the coil's off. Now usually to take this nut off you would use an impact driver, but I do not have one, so let me show you my other solution. The idea for the time being is just a wrench on my old clutch, being held by this chain tensioner. We'll see if it works. I realized I don't have a socket big enough to fit this nut. I'm just going to try and whack it off with a hammer. Alright, because I'm having no luck with the flywheel, we're just going to start in the head. We need to port and polish both the valves. I've left this open so that we can see a bit of a lip in there that needs to be shaved down, some hard parts that I'll show more later, and basically need to match the port inside to this here adapter. Alright, using a 12mm, we're going to get the head bolts off now, so we can get ahead. It's hard to do this. I'll do better here. Alright, now that the head's off, we can start cleaning everything off, taking off gaskets, and getting ready to do our head work. Alright, now we're just going to take apart the rest of the head, basically taking everything off, including all the valves, valve springs, and intake. Alright, so basically we just break this free. Ooh, very tight for some reason. There we go. Take these off. Okay, take these off. Take the rockers off. Take off our valve springs here. Okay, so off camera I tried again, and I was able to get the intake one off really easily actually. All I did was like push down on the valve, but the intake side's being more stubborn, so I might try to use a vice clamp to basically use it as a valve compressor. Basically I'm going to put it on the valve like this, with like a socket pushing on the top, and it should hopefully work. So screw this part in. Okay. heard it pop. So now, the valve spring, you see those little pins come off. There we go, just wiggle it around a little. There we go. Take off these little pieces here, and the valve comes right off. So if you have a pair of vice grips sitting around, something like these, this works very nicely. And we have our valve. Now I'm going to remove this. Break it loose. Alright, now that everything's off, I can kind of show what we're going to do with the porting. Basically, we have this sharp edge right here, along with a sharp edge going all the way around. And basically the goal is just to smooth it out around here. Same on the other side. Basically, you can see that same edge is on basically both sides. So you want to smooth out the transition all around and basically make that smoother. So I'm probably going to do a time lapse of me actually porting the valves because it'd be boring to sit here and watch me grind away for hours, but I thought I'd show. I'm just going to use a normal Dremel. I got some super cheap aluminum burrs off of Amazon. I got a whole set of them with like different shapes and sizes, but hopefully these will last long enough to port at least this head. These were only like 15-20 bucks for a whole set, so we'll see how it goes and do a quick time lapse. Alright, finished doing the porting. I might try and do some more polishing on the exhaust. I'll show you what I got right now. So, intake side, we have, you can see it's a lot more smoothed in here. I'll try to zoom in. You can see I took out that big ridge and really tried to like blend it with the valve guide. You can see it's a little smoother on the inside. I also tried to widen the port a little bit to match it with my intake. You can see I tried not to go too crazy. The edges got a little bit thin, but I think the gasket should still be able to seal. Probably have to just maybe get some gasket maker if it starts leaking. Now on the exhaust side, I didn't really touch the porting because I feel like you're probably going to want to port your exhaust. You can see I tried to make it a lot smoother inside, tried to do a little bit of a polish. Nothing crazy. I might try again. It's looking pretty good. You can see it's very blended in, as good as I could. Here's one more quick view of those from the top angle. You can see it's a lot more blended. This black carbon buildup is really hard to remove though, so still working on that. Alright, so I used one of these wire brushes to get all that carbon buildup off and tackle the flywheel. Got a 19mm. The nut back on, crowbar, pry on it. Alright, sorry, had to put it on the ground and really whack at it, but finally got it off. Now we're going to tap out the flywheel key. Boom. Got it. Alright, after much struggle, the key and the flywheel are finally off. Alright, time to take these bolts off. Alright, just pulled the cover off. The old camshaft kind of came with it for some reason, but that's okay since we're replacing it. Inside's basically empty. We can take the lifters out. Just gonna get this dried up and we'll take the oil sensor out. Now's a good time to remove the piston. Second one out. We can now just remove the bottom of the cap. Remove our rod cap. Remove the piston. And there is the piston. Now we can remove the crankshaft. I'm going to snip the yellow wire. Now I'm going to remove the bolt. Now to remove these two bolts. Pull out the sensor. Now some people choose to tap this hole and thread a bolt. I ended up finding a nut and bolt that I already had, so I'm probably just going to thread that on with some red Loctite. I'll torque it to 35 foot-pounds. Take this opportunity to remove the governor lever. Alright, it's a new day. I ended up putting that back in, but I ended up just cutting off the little arm on the bottom, since I tried to get a bolt that would fit through here and ended up deciding to just put the arm back in, but it shouldn't interfere. Now that everything is out of the engine though, we can finally start with the fun part, which is putting our new parts in. So I have an arc billet rod that is 40 thousandths longer. I have a flat top piston, which is 20 thousandths shorter than the stock piston. So since bone stock, I measured in the hole, the piston was 20 thousandths below this top face. And so if we use a 20 thousandths shorter and a 40 thousandths longer rod, it should be perfectly flush with this once we put it in. So now what we're going to do is put the rings in the piston, then put the piston on the rod, and then put the rod in here with our crankshaft back inside. Alright, so to put the rings inside the piston, first we have to look at the piston and see that there's going to be a big gap at the bottom, a smaller gap above that, and one more smaller gap above that. So how we're going to put these in is basically these tiny rings are going to sandwich this squiggly ring. So we're going to have these two on top and below of this one, and that is going to go in the very bottom big gap. Then moving over to these rings that are a little bit tougher, we're going to put the ring with the black side in that second to last gap and right in the middle. And then we're going to put the ring with the silver edge at the very top groove. Alright, so first up, you're going to want to put in your this squiggly one. So what you have to do though is on the back of each of these ridges is a little tab. So you have to put this one first, even though the other rings will go on top of it. So put that one in first. Make sure it's seated all the way in. Now take the first one of your thin rings. Make sure it goes all around the top. See, it might fall into some of the other rings, but you can just pull it out. See here, just gotta get it over that ring and seat it in. So you can see all the way around. Got it seated. Now for the one on top, gotta make sure the squiggles aren't overlapping. Take this. Put it over top here. Boom. See, you can see here, I almost have those gaps lined up, so you want to make sure you twist those so they are not lined up. You do not want your gaps to be aligned. There you go, you can see I turned one of them so they're no longer aligned. Time for our thicker black ring that does not have silver on the edge. This one you have to be careful with because it can snap. So we're going to go around carefully here, carefully. Just snaking it in all the way around. Boom, got it in. The last one with the silver edge right on top. It's easier to get one end started in and then go around the piston, pushing it in. Boom. Again, make sure those gaps are not lined up. And that is the rings on the piston. Alright, now to put the pin in the rod onto the piston, I'm going to first lubricate everything with this Lucas assembly lube, just to make sure that when we start it up, you see I already put one of those in. You just snap that wrist pin right in there, just a little bit of a lube, just spin it around in there. Same on the other side, all the way around in there, very nice. Alright, now, one thing to keep a lookout for, piston's going to have this little arrow on it. The long end of the rod is going to line up with the dipper. You can see there's two dots on the side there that actually line up, and the piston needs to go on with the arrow facing down towards the long end. Get the pin started. It'll be pretty snug. Luckily we lubricated it up so it should hold. Now we just put this in and push it through. Get it all lined up. Let's lubricate this too. Okay, now I'm going to pull this back out, push it in. Should just go right on in there, nice and smooth. Take our last little ring and take a pair of pliers, grab this, snap it right in. I actually need to push it in. There we go. You can see the camera will focus. Snapped in to that little groove inside the piston. Arrow pointing towards the long side. And now we're ready to install this in our block. First thing I'm going to do is put our crank back in. Slide it right through that bearing. Boom, pop it right in. You can see it now rotates freely. Now I'm going to use this piston ring compressor to compress the piston rings and push it right in. Now your piston should be in with the arrow pointing down, and you want to try to line up the best you can the piston to your crankshaft. Try to rotate it so that it's further down, that way you can access the bolt holes a little better. Now we're going to put the rod cap on and torque it down per the instructions that come with it. Make sure that the dipstick is pointing downwards. It should not be pointing up like this. It has to be pointing down. Screw them in finger tight until you can't anymore, and then use your torque wrench. Now normally you would use a torque wrench with inch pounds, but I only have one with foot pounds, so I'm just going to carefully go up until 10 foot-pounds and then start incrementing 1.5 foot-pounds until I get to almost 15, which is pretty close to the 150 inch-pounds that you need. And there we go. Now that our piston and rod have been installed, it's time to do our camshaft. So I've decided to go with the Black Mamba Jr. It's got 0.275 lift and 230 duration. With it, I have some brand new lifters and this camshaft installation tool that I got off of Amazon. So let's get to it. First things first, put a little bit of lube on the new lifters. It's right around. The other one too. Alright, now, just gonna stick these back up here into the little hole. See here. The assembly lube also helps hold them in so they don't slide out. Nice and smooth. There we go. Let's see here. A little bit extra on this one. There we go. Now, to install the cam, just make sure you apply lubricant to here, 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 and here, as those are the parts that are going to be rubbing when the engine first starts. And you don't want the engine to start up dry. To install the cam, we have a little dot right here, and a little dot right there that you can kind of see. Now all we're going to do is slide the cam in, lining it up with the holes, while also lining up those 2 dots. And there we go. The 2 dots are lined up right there and there. The yellow is lined up with this little dot. Piston is at top dead center. So now I'm just going to install this tool that holds everything in place so that I can rotate the engine and make sure that there are no colliding parts. Using it, you can see, turn our engine over here. You can see that nothing is hitting, so luckily we don't have to do any clearancing. We should be good. Now that we checked that everything is clearanced, we're good to put the crankcase back on. Got a new gasket, and I'm going to torque everything down to about 17 foot-pounds. Alright, up next, we got new billet flywheel, much lighter than the old one, advanced timing. This one has, I believe, 34 degrees of advance. So, first we're going to lap it on. We got this valve lapping compound, and yeah, I did read that this might actually be the wrong flywheel for this engine, but we're just going to lap it on and hope it sticks. After lapping, you can see we got a super nice even surface on both the wheel and the flywheel, crankshaft and the flywheel. I'm going to put the stock key back in for now because I don't think I need any more timing advance or retardation. I think you can see I use some Q-tips to get the grinding compound out of the keyways, so you want to make sure that you get it off of all the surfaces to the best you can. All we got to do now is pop this key back in here, hammer that back in, and put our flywheel on. Just finished torquing this down to, I ended up going to 70 foot-pounds. You were supposed to do 65, but because this flywheel isn't really made for this engine specifically, I went just 5 foot-pounds over. I had to put it on the floor and stand on it, but I got it done, so now we're going to put the coil on. Alright, so we got a new coil. And to put it on, we just see here. It's got the same bolts that I saved from the old coil. Alright, so we're going to use a feeler gauge here. Instructions for this coil and this flywheel are to set the gap to 50 thousandths. So using a 30 and a 20 squeezed together, that'll give us our 50 thousandths. So squeeze that down. Yeah. Now that the coil gap is set, I'm just going to run this back through just like how it was with the stock coil. Let's see here. And right here is where it will go back to the off switch. Alright, now before I put this head back together, I'm going to lap the valves real quick. It's just like the flywheel. Got that same compound right on the valve here. Drop it through the hole. Let's see here. There we go. I don't really have a suction cup thing, but you can just honestly grab it from the bottom and just kind of twist it from the bottom here. You can just like this. That should be good. Now I'm going to do the same for the intake side. Actually got spread around. Just make sure you kind of dot it on all around. Here. Just like that. Let's twist it. Start right here. Alright, now that our valves are lapped, it's time to put them back in with our new 26-pound valve springs. Got just a bunch of paper towel and place here we can push down on so the valves don't fall in. To get the valve springs back on, I already got them on their new retainer. You want to put that in there like that. Get it in position here. Now we're just going to push down real hard. Alright, I got them both in. Much struggle off camera, but they're in. These are going to go this way, and they actually go on after these because this is going to go on something like that with your push rod in it. It's going to push on your valve. Then you're going to put this on, and then finally the nut to lock it all down. Alright, to finish this off, this cam calls for 3/1000 tolerance on the valve lash for both open and close. See here, set it on both sides. Alright, lock them down with these little locking nuts. Just this bottom wrench until it gets right where you want it. Good amount of resistance, not too much, in the top. Okay, and now our last step, just pop this valve cover back on, gasket lined up, put in your screws. Now we can get the cover back on. Alright, and with that, we are pretty much done. Just did the finishing touches, cover on, valve cover, spark plug, fuel tank. Make sure you remember that this wire that came from the coil, you just plug that right back into the kill switch. Put this back on, gonna put the exhaust on when it's in the bike. Fueled, routed all the fuel hoses. Alright, the engine is back on, ready to be started. It's all hooked up. I don't have anything hooked up to it yet because the riser plate I was going to use with the new torque converter is too tall. It was bumping into the top, so have to order a new one of those. But right now we're going to start it and break the engine in. Sure to get your gasket in place. Alright, now I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing with the torque converter. Got these 1-inch spacer things. I used a drill bit and a Dremel to slot the holes that were already there so the engine can slide slightly more forward than it was before. You can see I had to clearance the torque converter a little bit down there and down there, but it just now fits. I did unfortunately have to cut off our chain tensioner thing just a little bit, but now this fits on there. Yeah, you can see just about clearances, also just about clearances over here. I already checked and the chain should be able to go over this frame part, so I don't need to cut that. I will need to flip the sprocket around to get it aligned because right now it's a little off. Got everything hooked up now. Ended up having to shave a little bit more on these parts just to get a little more engine movement. I was able to get the chain on. I took it for a test ride and there was some oil that spilled. I think the crankcase gasket was leaking. That bolt leaked. We were leaking oil on this side too. Basically leaking oil all around. I got the exhaust pipe on with a custom, I just made a little holder for it that bolts right onto the bottom of the seat frame. So hopefully the exhaust pipe won't snap off. I think it's all tuned up. It sounded good when I was running it until it started leaking oil, so it should be ready to ride, and we'll see if it leaks oil still. Just finished the test ride and we are leak free, so like this thing is ready to go. Time to change the oil one more time and then we can just rip it.